an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Spoil Me, covering One Piece, Season 1-ish, episodes 38 and 39. In these episodes, I'm really sad because these episodes involve mostly fighting two creatures that I've grown to rather like. Octopus Man and CowMonster. I don't want bad things to happen to either of these guys. I don't like this at all. Can't they just join our crew or something? Let's just, I don't know, we got room. Welcome to Spoil Me. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha. Thank you very much to Florian for commissioning this episode. Apologies for starting late and being out of sorts. My computer was giving me a really hard time, but I am here and I am excited because I really like these episodes a lot. Y'all, I don't approve. Whose idea was it to make the sea monster adorable? Whose bright idea was it? Because I'm mad at them. I'm actively angry. I don't want to be rooting for anybody on Arlong's team. But when Momu got involved, I just can't handle it. Momu has been through enough. Momu is visibly injured. Momu is tired and sad. He's crying. And he's supposed to get in a fight now? I don't want that. And honestly, I don't want Luffy to be the guy who fights this creature in its current state. I was already judging them for enslaving Momu to drag them to the island to begin with. Y'all know I didn't love it. It made me anxious and unhappy. But it was over. I was willing to forget it. And then we had to just bring that shit up again and also introduce this sort of idea that Arlong has it sort of brainwashed or it's just in an abusive relationship, which makes me feel for it all the more and be really sad over how this all goes. I'm just bummed. And then Octopus Guy. What's his name, guys? Help me. I keep wanting to say Harim or Hadish. I don't know. Hachi. Thank you, Florian. I really enjoy this dude. And I don't want him to go up against Zoro. I really like him. He's just an enjoyable guy. I get the feeling that he fights everybody because he doesn't really get what's happening. He wants to fight and he wants to win, but in a really abstract way. You don't get the sense that he really grasps the damage that he's doing. I want Hachi to, I feel like if Hachi were to win the fight against Zoro, that he would look down at the bleeding dead Zoro and be like, oh my God, is he okay? What happened? I feel like initially he'd be like, ha, motherfucker, I won. And then it would very quickly turn the corner and he'd be like, why isn't he getting up? What's the deal? We had our fight. We're done. Can we just be buds now? He just has a vibe of childlike wonder to him. And so him going up against Zoro, it's just, I don't want it at all. I don't like any of this. I really, really like the episodes a lot, but I was so conflicted as I watched because I don't want to feel sorry for the enemy. Don't do that. And Arlong sucks so bad. How did these two creatures get roped into this to begin with? I guess when you're a fish man, probably you don't have tons of options, or you just stick with your own kind because I'm a guy who looks like Hachi, I have to assume, doesn't have a lot of options open to him. Bernadette says, in German, Hachi is called Okta and voiced by a woman. confused me so much when I finally saw the original. Oh, yeah. And Okta, like, that makes a lot of sense. I wonder what Hachi means. Does Hachi have a meaning in Japanese? Or is it just a name and not like a meaningful name? It also means 8. Okay, cool. So, all right, I'm going to start at the beginning, but I just wanted to express my my disapproval and my frustration. So, episode 38 begins with poor Nami in the street crying all alone still. I actually really rather liked the way that this went because they give her the space to just fucking despair for a little while. And you know, the bitch has been through a lot. And she just stabbed her arm all up. Let's give her a minute. You know, like, and I said to you guys in the last episode, which I did with Gabriella, I hope that she gets to be involved in the eventual takedown of Arlong, which I'm hoping is coming. But I don't need for her to immediately get it together and get up and like go fight. I want her to be involved in the end. But I really appreciated that the show was like, yeah, she's got trauma. Like, genuinely has been working for the better part of a decade toward a goal that got ripped out of her hands by somebody who was working in bad faith the entire time and she didn't know. So that's a combo of a bunch of wasted time, energy, effort, and sacrifice. And also you feeling like a fucking schmuck. Because let's face it, guys, whether or not you should have seen that somebody was conning you, even if they did a great job, you always feel like you should have known, you know? I feel so bad. So a friend of mine had recently gotten in touch saying that she was really excited because she found a rental of a like 3-bedroom house that was not in as like good an area of the city that she lived in currently, not in as high demand an area, but it was bigger and it had like a new kitchen. And it was going to be $300 less a month than what she was paying now. And she was really excited because her father had to recently move in with her due to some health issues of his. And she was in a 1-bedroom she's currently in a 1-bedroom. So it was really tight. And she was so excited. And she said to me in her text, I'm just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop though. And I said something like, I have a good feeling about it. And the next day, she texted and was like, well, and it turns out she gave first and last month's deposit to somebody who was not even related to the leasing office for this house. It was available for lease. And the person had the like code to get into the house and show it as if they worked for that leasing office, but they did not. So that person made off with like a couple grand of her money and like no idea how to track him down. I am sure that they must be somehow connected to a person who does work at the leasing office in order to get that code. I have no doubt. But the only reason that they even found out that it was a scam was because her boyfriend called the leasing office with like a general question and they were like, what? We didn't know. That isn't the price for that property. We don't work with somebody by that name. And she was just like, I'm so embarrassed that I fell for this. And like, it sounds like that was a really good scam. You know, I don't want her to feel embarrassed because that is not. Sometimes people are con artists because they are very good at that. And it's not on you. There are some scams that I genuinely am like, how did somebody not realize how suspect this was? But then there are ones like this where it all looked so legit and I can't even be like, I can't even blame her at all. I can't say with any certainty that I wouldn't have fallen for it, you know? I just feel so bad at this point. But yeah, so anyway, Nami is she finally has a moment where she's in the street and there's like this gust of wind, and there's something about that wind that I think the show is suggesting is like connected to Luffy's bashing the door in. And it's like she gets that gust of wind in her face and is like, it sort of wakes her up out of this moment of just sort of despair and self-pity to a degree. And it's one of those things where I feel like the term self-pity gets a bad rap because every time you hear it used, it's meant to sort of signify that somebody is indulging too much in a way that is like not productive and actually maybe a little bit despicable or not to be admired. And I always get sort of salty about it because, like, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. You have the right to feel bad that shit didn't go well for you. You have the right to be upset that the world is not a fair place. Everybody knows this. We all are like aware, but then we try and act like being frustrated and having a moment to let yourself feel that is somehow you losing control or being childish. And it's like, no, that's just an emotion. And unless you just completely let yourself get swept up in it, which can happen, but if you don't do that, there's nothing inherently wrong with it. So she gets sort of woken up out of this and is like, you know what? Luffy needs my help. I gotta go. And we cut over then to Luffy going to see Arlong after he breaks the door in, and he's like, who's Arlong? I love when Arlong is like, hey, I'm Arlong? That happens to be my name? Who are you? And I think he says, what are you? And here's when Hachi says, that's him. He's here. The guy who likes taking walks. And I don't know why I found that so funny, but Hachi just out here with the fucking, like, observational, just useless commentary is great to me. I love it. There are so many little lines in these two episodes that cracked me the fuck up, you guys. I swear I was falling out laughing. They genuinely got me. So this is when Luffy just walks in and they all are just like, hey, hold it. You can't come in here. Where do you think you're going? You need to run things by us first, kiddo. But nobody like seems to he just bashed your fucking like fortress doors in. They don't really seem to be grasping what he's capable of at all. And so these two dudes come up to him and they're like, hold it. And he just grabs them and bashes their heads together. It's so good. So then, what does a pirate want with me? And Luffy pulls his own arm back. I'm not entirely sure what that does. But he punches Arlong. Like, I guess it's that he stretches his arm back so that it, like, whips forward like a slingshot type of motion. But he sends Arlong flying. And Arlong is just sort of like crushed up against a wall for a moment. And he isn't actually hurt. He's just, it's just his pride. And then Luffy breathes out his nose. And honestly, that shit was so funny to me. That like, like a bull, that cracked me up. Can I tell you guys something? Owen and I watched, was it A Fistful of Dollars? We watched some spaghetti western a couple weeks ago. And I was so startled. I haven't watched many of them. You know, I know for a lot of people growing up, that was like something that they would put on all the time. And they played a lot on TV. So I know that a lot of parents would just be like, yeah, all right, we'll leave this on. But I haven't seen many of them. And for those who haven't, I encourage you to go watch one and just take note of how fucking anime like those spaghetti westerns are. These like big showdowns, the crowd of like henchmen standing around that are talking shit but then totally useless, the zeroing in on the eyes and the face in general, long pauses as they stare each other down, a long pan across all of the people in the town who were standing by going, all of that is it's like wild. You could do shot for shot and just put Luffy in one and Photoshop any villain's face over the other guy. And it would be the same. It's crazy. I never knew this, but it's so funny to me. Ryan says A Fistful of Dollars is based on a very famous Japanese film, actually. Oh, I'll be honest. I don't know if that's what I watched. I'm like thinking about it and I'm like, it could have been like Good, the Bad and the Ugly. It could have been, I can't even remember, but I don't know. Maybe more than that one has a connection with Japanese film. But yeah, anyway, I was just really like startled by it because there was a moment like we had just been watching it and the close-ups were happening and I sort of just didn't connect it. And then all of a sudden I realized how long they were spending on the panning shots and the facial expressions. And I was like, oh my God, this is fucking One Piece. Like what? Especially too, there's like that sort of going from town to town and just handling whatever bad guys you happen to come across because the town's being terrorized. I mean, that's just very much this show as well. So let's see, going back. So, oh my God, this is when Sanji and Usopp and Zoro all catch up to Luffy because he ran away from all of them and left them behind. And guys, I just have to say, one of my favorite lines in this that did get me laughing was about Usopp. So Usopp, he basically like baits Duck Lips to like chase him. This goes on for the whole 2 episodes, this chase. By the end of the 2nd episode, it's still happening. And even he is like, this is really going on a long time, which cracked me up. But I love at one point he stops and like slingshots a fireball at the guy and is like, yeah, what now, bitch? And then it's like, oh shit, and takes off again. And one of the townsfolk is like, what is up with that guy? He is like super brave and then he runs away like a coward. He's really baffling. And I was just so happy for that to be straight up acknowledged. It's just, this man is baffling. Yeah. Agreed. Oh God, that just made me laugh so hard though. So we have the whole, we're about to face off with all of these guys. Everybody is looking at Arlong having been tossed aside. And there's just a moment of, wait, who are these guys? And the townsfolk, for their part, are watching from the outside going, why are they even getting involved in this? Why do they care? They're willing to risk their lives, but who are they? And they're like more than human. This doesn't, the abilities that Luffy is demonstrating here. Gensan says, what reason do they have to fight? I want to screen share with you guys so bad. It says, what reason do they have to fight? And then it pans to the little windmill thing on his hat. His little, why? What is that? I don't understand the significance of it. I'm screen sharing. Oh, that's not the screen share I want. I'm just screen sharing my, that's not the, see, I'm on Safari right now. So it's not doing it the way that I want it to do. Sorry guys. But I just wanted to show you like the slow pan and how long it hangs up over it. Is it just because it's meant to signify that like the winds are changing? But I just don't really understand why this is on his hat, I guess. I don't understand the, Well, anyway. So, yeah, this is when they summon Momu. And I knew that Momu wasn't going to want to fight them. You know, we already saw what happened to him. And he's crying again. He's got the big, like, the knot on his head from where he got hit. I feel so bad for him. And then, as he's just swimming out, about to basically just throw this fight, Arlong says, Momu, what are you doing? And Momu stops, and we see his eyes, and it's weird. I can't tell if it's supposed to be that his eyes just look scared, or if his eyes are meant to depict somebody who's, like, brainwashed, and they're basically giving the, like, you know, the trigger to turn him into the Winter Soldier here. But yeah, if you want to run away, I won't stop you. And then understand, Momu, if you want to run away, I won't stop you. Is he just lying? Or what is it? Because that line is the thing that makes Momu's eyes turn totally white. And then he just becomes, you know, the vicious killing machine again. I felt so bad. I don't want this thing to do this. He doesn't want to do this. I hated all of this so much. So, and I love fucking Usopp has almost the same look to his face as Momu does in his, like, terror and fear. Luffy just says, I'll do it. This is a waste of time. And stomps his feet down into what I presume is like the cement or the marble or whatever it is of the surface they are standing on. So he stomps his feet in. He twists his torso up in a way that is remarkable to witness, reaches out his hands, and grabs each of Momu's horns. And I should mention that at this point, Momo's face has returned to normal and he is crying again. I hate it. Okay? I hate it. I hate it. So, once he twists himself up and his arms stretch out, that's when Arlong is like, oh, he has a devil fruit power. And one of his henchmen, it's unclear who, just says, who cares? Which I found very funny. Just like, yeah, but we're fishmen. Reminder. So, whatever. And I was like, I don't know, man. If Arlong seems concerned, I feel like you should also be. But, yeah. This is when he spins poor Momo around in a pinwheel pattern and bashes all of the henchmen. And we go back to the pinwheel on his hat to just be like, see? And then poor Momu goes flying through the air. And I hope Momu's still alive. I'm just saying, Momu deserves better. Justice for Momu. Hashtag somebody start a GoFundMe. I hated this part so much. So, the one good thing is that most of the crew got leveled here. Unfortunately, what happened as a result is that Luffy's feet are stuck in this stone now. And I can't ever tell how this show is going to handle a given thing. Because if the writers were in a different mood, I'm assuming that Luffy would have just yanked his feet out. But they didn't feel like that today. So they just are like, yeah, Luffy's not going to get out. That's going to be a real problem for him. He stomped his way in. And we're going to acknowledge that via Usopp, who is just like, dude, you were the one who did this. You can't undo it. But we're going to have it be that no, he cannot. And have that be its own whole thing. This leads to Arlong scooping Luffy up with the fucking stone still attached to him and throwing him in the sea, which I'm getting a little ahead of myself because before that happens, Hachi hits him with a bunch of squid ink even though he's not a squid, I thought. But it doesn't really matter because nobody has any powers that like make sense for their animal. It's fine. Everybody's got all kinds of things that they can access. And apparently Hachi has some squid ink. Kyle says octopus having two. Do they? I just always thought it was just squid. All right, well, there it is. I don't know if you guys have ever had a chance, but if you ever go somewhere, a lot of Spanish restaurants have it, and like Spain Spanish, not like, you know, Mexican or Colombian restaurants, but like Spain Spanish, they will make soups with squid's ink, and it looks like a fucking Halloween prop because it's black, but it is the tastiest thing. Holy shit, it's so good. If you ever get a chance, I really recommend you try it. So yeah, this whole thing, with poor Luffy, he has this moment with Sanji kicking him in the head, kicking him like standing up and just kicking him like with one leg, the way that you would sort of smack somebody on the side of the head, and they're all yelling at him, "Are you trying to kill us too?" And it's like it never even occurred to Luffy that he could have absolutely knocked all of his friends over. I hate this. We get to see poor Momu with his eyes all like twirly, hanging around in the ocean outside. I hate it so much. So this is when Hachi does the squid ink thing. Luffy tries to get out of the way, does not succeed. And then we have him covered in black ink. He can't see. This is when Arlong decides to step in. And like I said, he just pulls the whole chunk of cement out of the ground and throws him in the water. And it's kind of funny to me because as he does it, guys, this is one of the best moments. First of all, he says something like, if you have eaten one of the devil fruits, you can't swim. I'm like, I mean, that's true, but also his feet are locked in rock. So even if he hadn't eaten the devil fruit, I'm pretty sure you've got that covered anyway. You know, like that's not the ace in the hole here, man. The fucking feet stuck in the rocks, that's the thing. Regardless, what happens here that I found so hilarious is he's holding Luffy over his head, and Luffy punches him, and his arm goes into Arlong's mouth, and Arlong bites him. And I had said before, I couldn't tell what would happen if Luffy went up against like certain blades, because he can take a punch, he can take a cannonball. There's all kinds of weapons that use sheer force, and that doesn't seem to be effective. But what if something has a sharp edge? And it seems that in this case, he's very susceptible to this because there's blood pouring out of his arm. What does Luffy do in response? After screaming in pain, he fucking leans over and chomps down on Arlong's arm. And then we cut to the shark pigtails man, who just says, "How pointless." That one really fucking landed, man. I was fucking cracking up. How pointless. He says that there's no amusement exactly. It's just him being like, what are you doing? Oh, God, what a waste of all our time. And I don't know, that just got me really bad. And then, like I said, he chucks him into the water. And as this is all happening, there's a fight happening between Sanji and Pigtails guy. And this is really like what we're seeing here is each person feeling overconfident at the way things were going initially because of how Luffy sailed in and decked Arlong and sent him flying. And so they all thought they had a handle on how this was going to go. and them each realizing as it happens, like, that they are actually in over their head in a way they didn't predict, and they are getting their asses handed to them. In the end, they, like, get back to their feet and keep on trying to fight. But there is a real moment there, where everybody is just like, oh, damn. So, yeah, we've got Hachi versus Zoro, and Zoro is, like, behaving as if he is back to 100%. And I was really relieved to see how much of the next episode focuses on the fact that he isn't and shouldn't be. This is the moment where Usopp just runs the fuck out of there and is chased by Duck Lips. And there's a great moment when he's laughing about how he thinks Duck Lips guy is like way far behind him. And he's like, oh, wow, you think you're the superior being, but you're just a giant turtle when you're on the land, huh? And then he turns around and Duck Lips is right behind him and is just like, no, buddy, I'm sorry, but you don't really know what's going on, do you? I love, too, as he's following Usopp out, he runs into all the townspeople. Judging from the fact that you have weapons, I take it this is a rebellion? And I don't know why that was, like, so amusing. I think it's because of how subdued he is when he asks the question. Because it sounds almost like he's taking notes to put into a form. Like, okay, so everybody, you've got all weapons. I'm assuming this is a rebellion. Let me just note that down real quick. Like, he's just, for information. It's part of, like, the bureaucratic process. Yes, rebellion. I know. Okay, just let me get the paperwork filed for rebellion, and then we'll let you do your thing. But this is when he gets hit with one of Usopp's little, fireball thingies. I shouldn't even say little, because it's actually, like, it sends him flying, It's, like, pretty good. And the episode ends with Arlong chucking Luffy, laughing to himself about how these stupid idiot humans do not know who they're up against. And Usopp is like, Zoro is like, all right, that's it. They're going to try, they're trying to kill Luffy and they might actually manage it. No. We've got to put these guys in their fucking place. And we have one moment with the camera following Luffy down and being, his mouth is like, he's covering his mouth and just going, oh no, this is really not going well. And I'll tell you what, guys, when he lands on the ocean floor and just chills there, I kind of thought maybe Momo was going to save him. I was sort of hoping, I want Momo to be okay. It was really more about Momo than it was about Luffy at that point, I'll be honest. But I was sort of like, is Momo, but it's like, there's no reason for Momo to want Luffy to survive because Luffy has hurt Momo more than once. So I knew it didn't really make sense, but I still was trying to be like, well, maybe Momo will just join the good side now, but it doesn't look like the good side to Momo. I mean, so this episode ends, with Zoro taking a swipe at, Hachi yelling, hang on, Luffy, and Usopp running away from Duck Lips with that weird, like, scared smile on his face that he gets with the words just, I'm gonna be killed! And honestly, I feel like a lot of us are carrying that energy in 2021 with like, hey, I'm probably going to die. And you just, am I scared? Am I just going to have a good time until it happens? Do I want to die maybe? And I'm like excited about it. I don't know. Who can tell? So then we start the next episode. This one is titled Luffy Submerged. Zoro versus Hachan the Octopus. So, this is genius. This whole thing with Luffy, I genuinely was like, I don't know what this show is going to do regarding the timing of this. And the answer is, we're going to acknowledge that Luffy needs oxygen. We're going to make it seem urgent. But we're also going to give the impression that people are standing around having full-on conversations at a normal pace with one another, deciding what to do about Luffy, and that he is still surviving this. Because, I mean, he goes down, and there's a real feel to the next episode and the way that how it all shakes out, that Gensan steps in to try and save Luffy. It feels like this is 10 minutes later, and Gensan is very, like I said, there's a lack of urgency in his mannerism. And I forget who he's talking to. I think he's talking to the brothers. And he says, well, then I'll go rescue him. And he just says it and stands there. And I'm like, well, then go, bitch. What the fuck are you waiting for? He's drowning. Get out of here. And what they decide to do is Nojiko goes down into the water with him. And we just sort of act like being underwater is just like being above ground gravity-wise. So he's able to just stand on the ground with this hammer and try and hammer away at the rock wrapped around Luffy's feet. And it doesn't make any sense. It's really funny in its weird way to see this happening, but you're also like, what? And eventually he just comes to the conclusion that this isn't going to work. He's just like, I can't really swing a hammer down here. I'm like, okay, you can't swing a hammer, but you can definitely just stand on the ocean floor like it's nothing. And they come to at the same moment, the same conclusion. This is really good. They just drag Luffy's head above water. Makes sense. I didn't think of that. But they just grab his head and stretch his neck until at least his head is out of the water and he can breathe again. And it's unclear because Nojiko says something about how he's swallowed a lot of water already. And we don't actually see him breathe, if I'm not mistaken, but it seems to be taken for granted that he is breathing, or that they're close to. I'm just going to read this spot here. Right, because on the ocean floor, Gensan is doing CPR essentially on Luffy's chest, and I think it's Sanji is underwater at this point, and is like, oh, you know what? I could just kick that rock and break it. And as he's thinking this, the fucking shark guy jumps in the water after him and screws up his whole damn plan. I should mention, too, that Sanji is shoeless, and I'm very curious what kind of kick he can manage when he doesn't have shoes on. Because I feel like that would have to be part of the overall arsenal of weaponry, right? You have to kick with a shoe. Unless it's just meant to be that his feet are fucking superpowered somehow. I wouldn't be mad about it, but I do want to know. But anyway, so I just wanted to get out of the way, what's going on with Luffy here, because, that whole thing is ongoing and we just keep cutting to it throughout the episode. But it's, really, I feel bad because anytime that Luffy is put out of commission, a lot of the time it's his own stupidity. He just does something that's not warranted. And look, you could say that about this too, because he was the one who drove his feet into the fucking stone in the first place. I mean, that would be fair. I'm not going to argue about it. But there is a part of me that is just kind of yeah, but he didn't know that he was fighting somebody who could literally just break rock and that and throw him into the ocean. So I do feel like he got the raw end of things a little bit here. So this is the episode that focuses mostly on Zoro. There's also some Sanji, but it's the two of them, each of them fighting one of the henchmen. So we've got Hachi up against Zoro, and Sharkman up against Sanji. Guys, can I tell you about a moment that I genuinely thought something had happened with my television? Hachi jumps out of the way of Zoro's sword, and with his suckers, he latches on to a pillar. And there's a long pause with no music, no dialogue, no sound effect, just a pause that made me think that my TV was buffering again or something, because it'll do that, it'll just suddenly stop. And I was like, there was a second where I was like, God damn it. And then they start moving again, and Zoro's just like, well, come down from there. And I love this so much, y'all. He yells, come down already. And Hachi just goes, nah. He doesn't even say no. That sound that he makes isn't subtitled with any dialogue. It's just him going, nah. And honestly, that was a whole vibe. Just be like, what are you doing? Get down. Now, feeling it. Now. Oh, God. Yeah, I get it, buddy. You're the one who kind of picked this fight, so I don't have a lot of sympathy, but I just enjoy Hachi so much. And this is the point where Zoro is like, I don't know what to do with this guy. He says something about how Hachi is just throwing him all out of whack, I think is the way that he says it. Just, this is not the kind of opponent he has faced before. The dude likes to play around. He's too friendly. Zoro goes after his hair, slices the tips of some of his spikes off. And Hachi, do you know what I'm going to do? You messed up my hair. I'm gonna forgive you because it's going to grow back. Never change, Hachi. Never change. No matter what they tell you. Don't let Arlong influence you. You're beautiful and perfect as you are. I loved it. So good. So unexpected. And this is when the brothers are serving sort of a weird purpose this episode. They're just on the sidelines watching all of this. And I have to say, I'm not exactly mad at the townspeople for not getting mixed up yet, because it seems like there are some dudes who are more capable than they starting things off for them. They all have abilities that are above average and unusual. So I'm not trying to be what are you doing, guys? Get in there. But there is an element of that for me, just because they don't even talk about whether they should do anything or sneak up behind anybody. I kind of would enjoy these fights between Sanji and Sharkman and Hachi and Zoro to be punctuated by weird, townspeople just chiming in or just trying to stick somebody with a pitchfork. Just they're not able to get in a full-on fight. But here and there, they're just going to try and stick the guy with something, stab him, smack him. We're out here doing our part. We can't really completely fight, but we're going to help. I think that would have been pretty funny. So these brothers, like I said, they're sort of observing from the sidelines, like they're just audience members at a tournament or something. And they are about to try and do something. And this is when Gansen comes in and he says, what are you going to do with those injuries? You're going to die if you try and interfere when you have, the kinds of damage you've already sustained. And these dudes do something really interesting that I have to assume is a reference to something, guys. Is this a Japanese, motion of submission? Because both of them bend, and they're sitting on the ground already. So they bend at the waist and put their hands out in front of them like they're bowing. Almost like in the way that one would imagine somebody would bow to the statue of a deity, but they're facing away from him when he yells at them. And overall, the whole, like, the way this went was, I haven't seen anybody do this in this show yet. Or maybe I have and I just don't remember it, and it caught my attention because they both do it at the same time. But I am, assuming that this is just them taking their knock because he's right and they definitely shouldn't be fighting in the state they're in. But I was like, what's going on there, guys? And this is when he says, if you're talking about that rubber young man, I'll go and rescue him. Whether we can save that young man or not is probably what will decide this fight, right? I can tell that too. Again, how about you fucking go then? Instead of standing here having a quorum with everybody offering to help and accompany you. Just get moving. He's drowning actively at the moment. Oh my God. So that whole thing begins. We go back to Zoro and Hachi. And Hachi, actually, there's a reason a human swordsman can't defeat me. Do you want to hear what it is? You want to hear it, right? When you hear it, you'll be surprised, scared, blown away. And Zoro is on the ground like, fuck's sake, man. And he begins to collapse. He says, my fever's getting worse. I thought it would come down while I was moving around, and I'm like, why would you think that? That's not how that works. I really do, like I said before, appreciate the acknowledgement of Zoro's injury, because I had said that I was wondering, did Zoro have like some kind of superpower, because he seems to recover so quickly from other injuries. And it still is true that he has recovered really quickly from others. I am assuming that this is being given special attention, feels like the wrong word, but they're giving this injury more acknowledgement because it's from Mihawk and it's meant to be like more serious maybe than the injuries that he has sustained from other people. Although, we saw like Buggy the Clown put a knife right through him. It was one of Buggy's henchmen. That seemed like a serious enough injury to me, but what do I know? I just do like that we have him fighting here, but then it begins to be clearly taking its toll on him. And as he begins to sway and go down, everybody is like noticing this. Even Sanji, who's in the midst of his own fight, takes a moment to turn and be like, ooh, I was worried that this was going to happen to him. And the Sanji keeps like forgetting that he's fighting, and the guy he's up against keeps having to be like, hey, pay attention. What the fuck? And I found that feels right in line, honestly. There's something about Sanji that his personality does not say focus to me. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's not the vibe you get off of him. So the fact that the person fighting him has to keep being like, you're not paying attention, it just rings true. Also, Hachi thinks that like Zoro's faking this and is like, I'm not going to fall for it. And he climbs up the rest of the way of this pillar, jumps inside the house, and then comes out with a sword in every hand. Here comes Hachi, user of the 6 swords style. And Zoro, at this point, drops to the ground, and Hachi says, hey, that's not where you're supposed to fall. Don't mock me. Oh, Hachi, you're so delightful. And I feel bad for Zoro because he's been waiting this whole time to fight this guy properly. And now the man finally has some swords in his hands, and Zoro can't even hold his head up anymore, So there's a bunch of things that Hachi does, and I have to think that they're going to come up again later. I mean, Hachi gets beaten in the end, but I don't know. So the first thing is that Hachi gets irritated with the fact that he got cheated out of a good fight and a proper victory, and he begins to whip his swords around and create basically a cyclone around his body of like debris and wind. And the Shark Man says, "Stop it, Hachi. I know how you feel. But if you really go on a rampage, we'll be in trouble. Are you going to destroy Arlong Park?" And I love this. No. Oh, sorry. No. I got too worked up. And the guy says, "Don't get carried away." You're right. You're right. Sorry. You're right. He's so cute, guys. I can't help it. I like Hachi a lot. He's out here just like, oh, I wouldn't want to hurt anybody. This is what I mean. You know, like, I don't know. I don't feel like he gets it. And I can't help but just enjoy him a little bit. So at this point, Zoro says, "Six sword style, huh? What a joke." And he forces himself to his feet, but he looks like shit. I mean, he's not even able to really straighten his back. And then says, "I'll tell you one thing, Octopus, there's a man I need to meet up with. Until I see him again, death himself won't even take away my life." And thus begins a second round of this fight. We go back briefly to Usopp running away from Lips Man, to Sanji. I forget how Sanji gets where he is. He, like, the dude, he gets, like, kicked through the wall, I think, because we cut to him and he's just on the road smoking. So he went through the wall, right? And then he just laid there for a second and was like, "Man, I fucking need a cigarette." Which, yeah, that feels right. And basically, even though he got kicked through a wall, is like, that wasn't even that bad. I took a lot of kicks from that geezer that were worse than this. So we have the fight finally between Zoro and Hachi. And it's a weird moment. He says something, the technique is streaming wolf swords. And Hachi doesn't seem to think he's injured. But then when we cut to him, he's got slices on him. And we don't really see how this happens or how it works. It doesn't really matter. Like, that's not the point, you know? But he is very enraged at the fact that he has been sliced up. And it's just like, it is simple math. I have 6 swords. You only have 3. I have to win. That's how this goes. And this is when we get a series of flashbacks of all of the things throughout his life that have grown to mean anything to him and motivate him on, you know, his path as a swordsman. And he turns around. He says something about how their swords are like way different amounts. And I think is it Hachi that says my swords weigh in at 300 kilos per sword? Which that's Hachi that says that, right? Not Zoro. They weigh a lot more than your human swords, you bastard. Yeah, okay. And yeah, the whole thing is that it's meant to be like the weight, metaphorically speaking. But Hachi doesn't understand that because Hachi doesn't understand a lot of things. So, Octopus pot stance. And he goes at Zoro with all of the points connected. And it looks like he's got a pretty good attack. Zoro blocks him, but then he body slams him and sends him flying. And reminder, Zoro is already not doing well. He's flying through the air and coming back down again when here comes another pinwheel style with all 6 swords where he's basically made himself into a blender and Zoro is heading straight down into his blender blades. And somehow Zoro gets caught up in the blades, but manages to slice the poor Hachi's hands. It looks like each of his hands has been injured. and all of the blades go flying. And I do not understand how this happened. He rolled on my swords, adjusting to the spin. On top of that, he gave me a free hand cutting service. What a weird way to say that, but sure. And there's a moment here where Hachi tries to attack him from behind in just a pure fit of fury. And every time we go back to these brothers watching on the sidelines, I'm just like, I don't know how you keep drawing their mouths even wider than they were a second earlier. I feel like that's, you already topped it. You can't go back now. But he sends Hachi flying up into the air, and that is meant to just be, well, Hachi's beaten. All of his swords are in pieces. It doesn't, he's saying to himself, how could I be defeated by the three sword style? So he's not dead. But it's clear, as far as everybody is concerned, this battle is over. You know the difference between the weight in our swords, right? This is Zoro now. Are you happy now? Poor Hachi. No, he's not happy. So, this is when we go back to Nami, who is finally binding up her wound. And she basically tells herself, all right, I've had enough time to cry and feel bad about this. Now it is time to get my act together. And she is preparing to wade back into the fray. Sanji, meanwhile, is still fighting against Sharkman. And I love the, there's at one point the Sharkman is just like, man, you don't take me seriously at all. He doesn't seem actively saddened by it the way that I'm sort of framing it. But there is a vibe to that of just I'm kind of a threat. You shouldn't really not pay any attention to me as a threat. But yeah, then we see him under the water and the Sharkman coming after him. And there was a moment earlier where they were talking about how the Sharkmen are going to try and lure them into the water because it'll obviously be completely to their advantage at that point. I really wonder what is how he's getting out of that, because I don't remember them coming out of the water again after that. We end the episode with all of the townspeople watching Luffy's head and him not breathing yet, and Nojiko just yelling, come back to life, please, hurry. So that is how the episode ends. Actually, I lie. It goes from that to Usopp going, this guy is persistent, and then it ends. My bad. So yeah, these episodes were a lot of fun. I really enjoyed them. I had said before that I wanted Arlong to just be beaten, but I'm deeply enjoying all of this except for the fact that both people we've had to fight so far, or people in quotes, were guys that I actually liked. So if we could just kill Sharkman and Duckface now, that'd be great. All right, I have to wrap, guys. Thank you all again so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate you all, and I will see you soon with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.